Lesson 1, 3, Domain and Range. We will be reviewing what domain is and what range is. We have 9 or maybe 10 piecewise functions we're going to be discussing, so let's start with this one. Every time you're talking about a domain of a function, you have to look what part of the x-axis does it cover. Now if you look at this function over here, let me put no for range. So let's discuss the domain first. So ask yourself, what part of the domain is this function covering? As you can see, it's going from -3 all the way to +3. So it's covering this part of the domain. As you can see, there's no cut in the function, there's no gap. So it's going all the way from -3 to 3, and as you can see, there's a closed circle and a closed circle over here, so -3 and +3 are included. So the domain in this case would be -3 up till 3, and that would be in the interval notation. As you can see, I put a bracket on -3 and 3, indicating that these two numbers are included in your domain, as you can see over here. Now as for the inequality, you have always to mention x. So basically it's -3 is smaller or equal to x, which is in turn smaller or equal to +3. As you can see, x is going to be between those two numbers. So now let's discuss the range. Again, range means what part of the y-axis is covered by this function. So basically you look from bottom up to top and you check if there's any gap in your function. So it's going from -2, this is the bottom point, going all the way up to 4. And if you want to see it on the graph over here, let me slide this. So as you can see, it's starting from -2, which is included, all the way up till 4. There is no gap in your function, even though like sometimes you have two parts of your function covering the y-axis. It doesn't matter, as long as there is one line covering this part of the y-axis, it's going to be included in your range. So your range is going to be, in interval notation, it's going to be -2, which is included, all the way up to 4. And as you can see over here, there's no gap. And if you look back at the function, all the way from -2 up till 4, on one of the sides at least, there is a line, or there is part of the function. To write that in inequality notation, so x is between -2 and 4. Now let's move on to the next piecewise function. I'm going to give you a minute to think of it on your own, and then we're going to be doing this together. Remember, you can pause the video at any time to try to do the function on your own. So let's discuss this now. Let's talk about the domain. As you can see, the left point is -5, so it's going from -5, and it's included since it's a solid point, all the way up till 2. Now, yes, if you follow the function, you follow it all the way over here, so it's covering the x-axis. You hit a blank point, an empty circle, but the other part of the function starts at the same point, which is -1, and it's included. So basically they cover each other. Yes, you start at -5 and you hit an empty circle, but it's covered by the other function, by the other part of the function, which continues all the way up till 2, and as you can see, 2 is not included. So your function is going to be going from -5 all the way, and as you can see, when it hits this empty circle, you can still see it over here, and the reason is there is a filled circle on the other part of the function. So let's continue. It goes all the way up till 2, and as you can see, 2 is an empty circle representing this empty circle over here, so 2 is not included. So to write the domain of this function, it's going to be from -5 all the way up till 2, which is going to be parentheses because 2 is not included. -5 included, so bracket. 2 is not included, this is parentheses, and this is the interval notation. To write that in inequality, so you write x is between -5 and 2. This has a dash under it, so x is greater or equal to -5. This has no dash under it, so x is only less than 2 and it cannot be 2. So in interval you put parentheses to show that it's not included, and in inequality you put just smaller or greater to show that it's not included, and that is inequality notation. Now pause the video and try to do the range on your own. Now as for the range, again you look at the bottom to the top and you see what part of the y-axis is covered by this function. As you can see, there are two parts. It doesn't matter. Again, you only see what part of the y-axis is included. So it goes from 1 all the way up till 3, and there's an empty circle on both, so it's not included in both parts of the function or the graph, so that's why 3 is not included. So let's drag this and see what my range would be. As you can see, it's from 1 up till 3, and to write that in interval, it would be 1 up till 3, and 3 is not included. Inequality, this is what you write. It means that x is between 1, which is included, and 3, which is not included in your range. Again, this is a range, so you have to put y. I don't know if I did this on the other one. I always do that. So every time it's a range, it's a y between 1 and 3. And every time you say domain, it should be x between -5 and 2. Let me go back. Yeah. So this should be y, not x. Okay. Now let's look at the third piecewise function. Again, this Excel sheet is going to be on Edmodo. So if you'd like to review and do it on your own and then come back to the video and check the answers, that would be perfect. Now let's go ahead and think of this piece1 function. Domain, it means I have to go from the far left to the far right. So I know it's going to be starting at 4 and ending somewhere at 3, where 4 is included since I have full circle and 3 is not included since I have an empty circle. Now let's look if my domain is going to be split into 2 intervals or 2 inequalities or not. So I start at 4. As you can see, all the way there is a part of the graph covering either on top or bottom until you hit 1. And as you can see, 1 is an empty circle on this part of the graph and an empty circle on this part of the graph. Since we have empty circle on both, it means 1 is not included, so you have to split your interval at 1. And then you pick up at 1 again, and you continue all the way up till 3. Let's see that. So let me slide this. As you can see, it starts at -4, goes to 1, and 1 is an empty circle since 1 is not included, and it goes all the way up to 3, which is not included. So at 1 there's an empty circle, so you have to split your interval there. So for domain, you would write, it goes from -4, which is included, all the way to 1, which is not included. Union means or. It means x can be part of this domain or this. And again, the other graph catches up at 1 all the way up till 3. 3 is not included. So -4 is included, 1 is not included on both of the intervals, and 3 is not included, and this is because of the empty circle over here. Now pause the video and try to think of the range. As you can see, the range, the bottom point starts at -7 all the way up till 6. Now let's see if we need to split our range. So it starts from -7, which is not included. As you go up on y-axis, there is a line. Now here at 0 there is an empty circle, but there is a line on the other graph, so you're fine. As long as there's a line or a filled circle on one of the graphs, you're fine. So it seems that I don't have to split my interval at 1. So you continue all the way up, and as you can see on the y-axis there is a graph, so you continue all the way up till 6, which is not included. So let's see this. As you can see, it starts at -7, and at 0 it's not split again because there is a line covering this empty circle on the other graph, and you go all the way up till 6. So your range is going to be from -7, which is not included, so you don't put a bracket, -7, all the way up till 6, which is not included. So parentheses indicating that -7 and 6 are not included. And for the inequality, you write y is between -7 and 6. As you can see, there is no greater or equal or smaller equal, and this is because -7 and 6 are not included. Now the inequality for the x would be x is between -4 and 1. -4 is included, 1 is not, or x is between 1 and 3. Now let's move on to a fourth piecewise function. Now I'm going to be looking at number 7 and 9 in your domain and range homework sheet. Let's look at number 7. Again, for domain, you have to go from the left to the right. As you can see, there's no dot over here, so this means it continues on forever. So it's from -infinity, and it continues all the way until it hit a number over here, which is 3. At 3, the graph splits into 2, so 3 is not included. And then it picks up again at 3 and goes all the way to plus infinity. So to write that, you would write in interval form, you would write it goes from -infinity up till 3, which is not included, and then again the second part of the graph starts at 3 and goes all the way to infinity. As you can see, infinity is not a number, it cannot be included, so that's why you have parentheses. To write that in inequality, this means that x is less than 3. So x is less than 3, not equal because it cannot be 3. Or this means that x can be any number greater than 3. So this would be your inequality. Now as for range, again it goes all the way from -infinity, and then it goes all the way up until it hits this number, so the graph splits into 2, and then it picks up again at 2 and goes all the way up till infinity, so the range is going to be -infinity to 2 union 2 plus infinity. And since the graph splits at 2, so 2 is not included, and your range would be y smaller than 2 or y greater than 2. Now let's look at number 8. Let's look at the x-axis. As you can see, it starts at -3, moves on. Yeah, there is an empty circle here, but there's a filled circle on the other one, so you're good. You continue. Again, an empty circle which is covered by a closed circle over here, so it continues up till 5. So over here, yes, you do have an empty circle, but it's covered by a closed circle on the other part of the graph, so you're good. So your domain is from -3 up till 5, and you would write that from -3 up till 5, where -3 is included because of the closed circle and 5 is not included. So x is going to be between -3 and 5. Now let's look at the range. The range basically is a bunch of points. It is like this point, which is -2, it's this point, which is 1, and it's this point, which is 4. And when you have that, you use set notation every time you have points. So in this case, the range is just points, so you put it in this curvy bracket. You include -2, comma, 1, comma, 4. So that is your range. It's using a set notation, curvy bracket, and you include the points that are part of your range. So x can be any of those points. I hope this video helped. there's more practice on Edmodo. Please check Edmodo for more worksheets.